Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down two big winter storms that are coming to the United States over the next several days. And these winter storms are going to bring tons of snowfall to areas like the central and northern plains, the Midwest, and eventually even in the Northeast United States, where upwards of 1 to 2 feet of snow will fall in some areas over the next several days. In addition to this, there is a large severe weather event that'll be coming to the country early next week, and this will bring some significant severe weather from areas like the southern plains back into the southeast and maybe even the Ohio Valley. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's begin with what's happening right now in the United States today that'll lead to the two winter storms and the severe weather event. And we will begin with the southern plains, and this is an area that actually has a shot of severe weather today, tomorrow, and even Friday, anywhere from Texas back into Florida. Notice all this convection that has been ongoing throughout the early afternoon hours across areas in Louisiana and Texas. Actually, a lot of this storm activity was producing some large hail. We even had an isolated tornado risk this morning. Never really materialized in anything, but there might even be some offshore water spouts. So if you know any fish out there in the Gulf of Mexico, make sure to give them a call or text. Make sure they're doing all right down there. Back down in Oklahoma and as well as into North Texas, this will be an area to watch for later this afternoon for some more redevelopment of thunderstorms. I will be talking about this here, by the way, in just a minute or two. And then back over in areas like the Northeast, we do have a low pressure system spinning back over in Maine, and this is not really going to bring much more of any activity, but it is keeping areas quite chilly back up in New England. But the next storm that we need to watch for is going to be located right back in here over Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. This is the storm that's actually going to bring the potential for a winter storm to areas like Montana. Eventually, it's going to turn into more of a winter weather event, if you will, with several inches of snow being possible from the Dakotas back into areas like the Midwest, including the Chicago suburbs, by the way. And then eventually going into Thursday and Friday, we'll be watching for some significant snowfall back over in New England, and we will also be talking about that here in just a minute or so. And then back over on the West Coast, really dry right now, and it should stay like that at least through about Friday before the next chance of showers and even some snow showers in those areas as we go into Saturday and Sunday. All right, I do want to briefly talk about the severe weather potential over the next few days. Then we'll be talking about the winter storm and the severe weather event. Timestamps are in the description, by the way. Overall, the threat of severe weather for today, very minimal. We're talking about mostly north central Texas back into areas along the Gulf Coast. Main concern will be isolated large hail and damaging winds through about 9-10 o'clock this evening. By tomorrow, that threat will shift to the east across areas along the Gulf Coast, including Louisiana, back through the Florida Peninsula and Panhandle. Main concern is going to be mainly damaging winds, maybe a brief tornado. And then by the time we go into Saturday, the threat of severe weather really starts to dwindle. The only area that we're watching for is really just the east coast of North Carolina and then back over into southern Florida. And again, the main concern being some isolated damaging winds, maybe a brief tornado, but I think that threat is going to be extraordinarily low due to the fact we're talking about a very small area as well. Here's the timing for today. Overall, showers and storms are going to continue offshore just south of Houston throughout the afternoon hours. Another round of storms will be firing up across north central Texas. This will mainly produce some isolated damaging winds, maybe some isolated change-sized hail. By the time we get closer to 9 to 10 o'clock, those storms continue to move to the east, and as we go into the overnight hours into Flying Fences Friday, all of those storms will be moving off to the east. Now, let's talk more about the winter storm potential over the next several days, because there will be two different winter storm threats. Now, the first one is actually going to be going into today, tomorrow, and Friday, and eventually into the weekend for areas in the Northeast. It's going to be a multi-day event. Overall, beginning with today for Thursday, we do have some snow potential across areas primarily over in the Dakotas. By tonight, that'll move into areas like Minnesota. We do have winter weather advisories in effect in those purple boxes. That goes from North Dakota back into areas in northern Illinois. Notice the Chicago suburbs are not currently included in this. I still wouldn't rule out a coating to a couple inches of snow, but I do not think you'll be getting the bulk of the heavy snowfall that's going to come out of this event. There is a winter storm watch in effect for Montana, and there's also a winter storm watch in effect for areas in northern New England ahead of this upcoming winter storm potential. So beginning with the Midwest tonight, we'll be watching for some light snow for the most part across areas like Wisconsin and Minnesota. I say for the most part with emphasis because there will still be the potential for some moderate to even heavy snowfall across a very thin area. That's going to be from southeast South Dakota back into northern Illinois, and that's going to allow for the potential of some isolated significant snowfall accumulation. That would include areas like northern Iowa back into like areas like northern Illinois. Eventually, as we get closer to 9 in the morning tomorrow, heavy snowfall possible in eastern Iowa and as well as southern and northern eastern parts of Illinois and southern Wisconsin, and eventually as we go into the afternoon hours, that snow potential will move across the Chicago suburbs with maybe a quick shot of some moderate to heavy snowfall that could actually become a snow squall potentially, maybe reducing the visibility on the roadways during the afternoon hours. Eventually by the evening, that snow will move into areas like Michigan and eventually into the Northeast, where there will be the potential for some more significant snowfall accumulation. I'll be talking about the next winter storm potential here in just a minute on that second winter storm, which could actually also impact the Midwest. Here's what we're talking about with the snowfall accumulation over the next 24 to 48 hours. Notice most areas in that thin batch anywhere from about central Minnesota back into northern and central Wisconsin in the ballpark of 1 to 3 inches of snow. Again, it's nothing out of the ordinary, but it's definitely a little bit more rare for this time of the year. Notice back down in southern Wisconsin and eastern Iowa, this is the area where we could get some jackpot snowfall totals, perhaps upwards of 4 to 8 inches of snow in some isolated locations. With that being said, the chance of that does remain a little bit in the middle side of things, meaning you might see a lot of snow or you might just get what everybody else is going to be seeing, which is around 1 to 3 inches of snow. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you posted with the latest if anything does change there. In terms of the Northeast, it's a completely different breed of a winter storm. This will actually be a winter storm. The Midwest is mostly just dealing with an ordinary snow event. This will become a winter storm as we go into Saturday morning. Notice this heavy snowfall all across New York and northern New England. It's going to get very heavy as well across Vermont and northern New Hampshire as we go into late Saturday. Look at this purple area here. That is not a mix of rain and snow. That is just purely heavy snowfall. So upwards of 3 to 4 inches an hour of snowfall does remain possible with this snow event. As we go into late Saturday night to Sunday morning, this event is out of here. It's going to be a very quick moving system, but this trough is going to intensify so quickly that we actually will have the chance of maybe even an isolated rumble of thunder as we go into a late Saturday night across areas like Cape Cod. So really quick flip of the script here with this particular storm. In terms of snowfall accumulation, I'm not kidding. It's actually going to be a pretty big winter storm. We're talking about the potential of upwards of 12 to 18 inches of snow across areas like Vermont, New Hampshire, and as well as northern Maine. Definitely be prepared for that. Even upstate New York going to get at least 4 to 8 inches of snow, but some areas definitely could easily get to a foot of snow with this particular event. We will be talking about that second winter storm in just a moment, but I do want to mention that that second winter storm is also going to bring the potential for an increased and elevated risk of severe weather. It all begins Sunday. There's already a slight risk of severe weather for areas in Kansas back into north central Texas. Main concern right now is damaging winds, large hail, and a couple of tornadoes. By the time we go into Monday, there is another slight risk of severe weather across the Mississippi Valley. This very easily could expand as well across areas like Texas, maybe even slightly further to the north. Main concern for this will be the potential for some significant damaging winds and maybe an isolated tornado or two. So for the timing, this is the first winter storm. Again, notice it'll really strengthen as we go into Saturday morning. That thing's going to intensify very quickly. It's actually pretty impressive to look at on even the future radar. By the time we go into Sunday, that next winter storm will begin to develop along with the threat of severe weather. Low pressure system coming from the Pacific Ocean, going to move across the Rocky Mountains and eventually intensify very quickly down to a 980 millibar low pressure system. That's very strong. By the time we go into Sunday night, heavy snowfall possible anywhere from Wisconsin back into Minnesota, the Dakotas, and as well as Kansas. As we go into Monday, severe weather threat will increase quickly by Monday morning into the afternoon hours. Main concern will be a linear line of storms producing the potential for damaging winds. Once we go into late Monday into Tuesday morning, storms rolling up to the, or that storm, excuse me, is rolling to the north. That'll allow for snowfall across areas like Canada and back into even western Iowa and as well as Minnesota. Most of that snow will be light, and then by the time we go into late Tuesday into Wednesday morning, majority of that snowfall move to the north and east. Most of the Midwest will not really see much of this unless you're in the upper Midwest, or if this low pressure system gets close enough to areas like Wisconsin, we might get a little bit of snow on the back side of this, but I do think the majority of the snow that you're going to see is going to be from tonight into tomorrow's event. In terms of total snowfall accumulation, it's crazy to look at this really even this time of the year, especially in late March, but there's a chance of some really significant snowfall. I mean, we're talking 1 to 2 feet of snow will be possible across areas in Minnesota, back into eastern South Dakota, and then notice back even into Kansas. We very well could have around a coating to a couple inches of snow as we go into the early next week due to that potential for a winter storm, but obviously Kansas not going to be dealing with the winter storm, but you might get a little bit of snow out of this as we go into early next week. And then perhaps right along the Great Lakes over in northern Ohio and northern Indiana, there might be a coating to an inch as we go into tomorrow and as well as into early Saturday morning, but overall nothing too significant there. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the button down below and subscribe if you're not already.